Beyond the binary, medication, society, and personal agency in mental health. Psych meds, life-saving necessity, or just an excuse to dodge real coping skills? That's the debate, and it's dumb. The truth? It's way more complicated than that. Introduction: the black and white thinking around medication. Whenever the topic of psychiatric medication comes up, people tend to split into two extremes. One side swears by meds, they're life-saving, non-negotiable, and essential. The other dismisses them, they're crutches, happy pills, or a sign of weakness. And neither side really gets it. Because the reality is this: some people absolutely need medication to function. Some people take it to cope with a world that wasn't built for them. And most fall somewhere in between. But instead of discussing that, the conversation gets stuck in black and white thinking. Meds are good, meds are bad, kale smoothies cure serotonin deficiencies. So in this episode, we're cutting through the noise. We'll talk about when medication is essential, when it's a useful support system, not a crutch, when it's overused or prescribed for the wrong reasons, and how much of our mental health crisis is actually a society crisis. The goal isn't to tell you what to do. It's to help you think critically and take ownership of your own mental health without guilt, shame, or internet gurus screaming about big pharma conspiracies. So let's get into it. 1. When medication is essential. Let's start with where medication is non-negotiable. So, if you have diabetes, you need insulin. If you have asthma, you need an inhaler. If you have a severe psychiatric disorder, you might need medication just to function. For conditions like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or severe depression, meds aren't just helpful, they're the foundation for staying stable. People love to say, just tough it out. But no amount of positive thinking fixes a chemical imbalance. No yoga pose stabilizes intense mood swings. No kale smoothie balances serotonin levels. Sorry, Pinterest. Medication in these cases isn't about character or willpower, it's about biology. That said, meds aren't magic. They don't cure mental illness, they manage symptoms. And most work best when combined with therapy, lifestyle changes, and other supports. Think of it this way. An antidepressant won't solve your problems, but it might give you the clarity to work through them. An antipsychotic won't give you life skills, but it might create the stability to rebuild those life skills. For some, medication isn't an option. It's what makes having a functional life possible. And if that's you, there's no shame in it. But what about personality disorders? Well, here's where things get more complicated. Unlike conditions like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, personality disorders such as borderline personality disorder or BPD, or narcissistic personality disorder or NPD, aren't typically treated with medication alone. Therapy, particularly dialectical behavior therapy or DBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is the gold standard. These conditions, unfortunately, don't stem from a simple neurotransmitter imbalance, but rather deeply ingrained patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving, often shaped by early childhood experiences, societal influence, or relationships with toxic individuals. It's not a serotonin oopsie, it's more like your brain's been playing emotional Jenga since preschool. Many people develop short-term survival strategies that seem effective in the moment, but over time become the very thing that isolates them. Ever wonder why your relationships all end the same way? Why people slowly distance themselves? If the common denominator is you, it might be time to examine why. Spoiler, it's not because you're secretly a reality TV villain, although the script may be tempting to you. Ever feel like no one truly understands you? Like people dismiss your pain or label you unfairly? That feeling is real, and it makes sense if your life has been shaped by neglect, abandonment, or invalidation. If the world has constantly made you feel small, overlooked, or like you don't matter, it's natural to fight back, to demand attention, to avoid rejection at all costs, or to build emotional armor so thick that no one can hurt you again. But here's the hard truth. What worked to protect you before might now be pushing people away. Like emotional duct tape, great for a quick fix, but now it's peeling off and sticking to everyone else. If you feel constantly rejected, could it be that you reject first to avoid getting hurt? If people seem to pull away, could it be that you unconsciously test or manipulate them to prove their loyalty? Congrats, you've turned friendship into a loyalty obstacle course. Most don't make it past the tire run. Now, people who are going through emotional codependency often do this too, just for way different reasons. If you struggle with emotional control, could it be that your past wounds are making today's conflicts bigger than they really are? This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about recognizing that the coping mechanisms that kept you safe as a child might be sabotaging you as an adult. Ever feel like someone deserved to be punished for hurting you? Like they needed to be taught a lesson so they'd finally understand how much pain they caused? Again, that feeling is real, but let's be honest, how often did it actually work? Did they suddenly wake up, enlightened, apologize profusely, and change their ways forever? Or did they just get confused, distance themselves, or worst case, turn around and make you the problem? Because here's the truth. When you lash out to punish someone, sure, you might cause some short-term damage. Maybe they even have to go to therapy and spend over $4,000 unpacking the chaos you left behind. But guess what? The ones with real emotional resilience don't break. We grow. The ones who already knew their worth don't internalize it. We walk away. And the ones who have been through this before, well, we just give up on trying to help people like you. And that actually hurts people who struggle the same way you do. Because here's what happens. When someone deals with enough people who refuse to help themselves, they lose their willingness to try. They stop giving the benefit of the doubt, they see the warning signs and leave earlier. And yeah, that's tragic. But the reality, it only makes our lives easier and more peaceful. At worst, you become the punchline, the bad example, the cautionary tale we tell to help others recognize these patterns faster. And you're the one who has to live with you every day, every night, with no escape from your own thoughts. That's the real lesson. Now, all of that said, personality disorders often come with severe mood swings, anxiety, depression, impulsivity, or paranoia. Like your brain's throwing a tantrum party and forgot the RSVP. All symptoms that can be managed with the right medication. For borderline personality disorder, mood stabilizers, low-dose antipsychotics can help with emotional regulation. For narcissistic personality disorder, while there's tragically no direct medication, addressing co-occurring depression or anxiety can be crucial. For avoidant, dependent, or obsessive-compulsive personality disorders, SSRIs or anti-anxiety medications can reduce distress and improve daily functioning. The goal? Stop burning your own bridges. Look, if you struggle with emotional regulation, impulsivity, or extreme mood swings, untreated symptoms can make relationships, jobs, and even daily life chaotic. And here's the harsh truth. People might tolerate you, but they don't have to keep you in their lives. You're not auditioning for emotional survivor. No one's voting you off the island. They're just swimming away. That's why treating symptoms, whether through therapy, medication, or both, can mean the difference between healing relationships or repeating your destructive cycles. Ask yourself, are you constantly explaining why your reactions are justified? Do people seem to misunderstand or abandon you over time? Have you convinced yourself that everyone else is the problem? Because if you keep ending up in the same mess, different faces, that's a pattern, not bad luck. Life's not a cosmic prank show. You're not being punked by fate. Here's the thing. You don't have to fix everything overnight. You don't have to navigate this alone. You do have to take accountability for your impact on others. Now, all that being said, taking meds for mental health is no different than wearing glasses for vision. You're not weak, you're just tired of squinting through life's blurry bullshit. You're taking care of yourself. And that's real self-agency. 2, when medication is a helpful tool or a crutch. Now, what about the gray area? What if you don't need meds to survive, but they make life a hell of a lot easier? This is where people love to throw around the word crutch, like that's a bad thing. But let's think about that metaphor for a second. If you break your ankle, you use a crutch to walk while you heal. If your brain chemistry is working against you, meds can give you stability while you build other coping skills. There's nothing wrong with temporary support. For many neurodivergent people, like those with ADHD or autism, meds don't fix anything, but they can help navigate a world that isn't designed for their brains. ADHD meds won't make someone neurotypical, but they might help them focus in a chaotic work environment. Anti-anxiety meds won't erase stress, but they might make a toxic job tolerable while someone plans their exit. This is where society's role comes in. Take schools. Some kids are medicated for ADHD not because they need it, but because their school environment is failing them. One pediatrician even admitted prescribing ADHD meds to kids without ADHD because, and I quote, "modifying the kid is cheaper than modifying the classroom." Let that sink in. Instead of fixing broken systems, we medicate individuals to fit into them. And this pattern repeats in adulthood. Overworked professionals take stimulants to keep up. Burnt-out employees take anti-anxiety meds to endure toxic jobs. People exhausted by society take antidepressants just to function. Now, does this mean people shouldn't take meds? No. Yet, it's worth asking, am I treating a personal problem, or am I medicating to survive a system that should be changing instead? 3. When medication might be unnecessary or overused. Now, let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. Not every bout of sadness is depression. Not every shy kid has social anxiety disorder. Not every tough week needs a prescription. But modern psychiatry has blurred the line between normal human emotions and disorders. Grief isn't always depression. Stress isn't always an anxiety disorder. Feeling burnt out at work isn't always a personal mental health issue. It's often a sign that your job is trash. Yes, medication is often the first and fastest solution. Doctors are overworked. Insurance covers pills way better than therapy. And in a culture obsessed with productivity, people want a quick fix. So what happens? Well, people get medicated when they really just need therapy, better sleep, or time to process emotions. Pills are handed out to take the edge off without fixing the root cause. People stay on meds indefinitely, not because they still need them, but because no one checks if they still do. If you're on medication, it's always worth reassessing. Am I on this because I need it or because I never considered another option? Is this improving my quality of life or just numbing me? Am I fixing a problem or just coping with an environment that's making me sick? 4. Breaking the stigma. Medication isn't weakness. Despite hundreds of millions of people worldwide taking psych meds, stigma is still everywhere. Hey, why don't you just try yoga? You shouldn't need medication to be happy. I don't believe in depression. Cool, you don't have to believe in gravity, but you'll still hit the ground when you trip. Needing medication doesn't make you weak. Refusing medication doesn't make you stronger. What matters is making an informed, personal choice. If you need meds, take them without shame. If you don't, great, but don't judge people who do. And if you're unsure, ask yourself what actually serves your life best. Final takeaway, beyond the binary. At the end of the day, mental health medication isn't good or bad. It's a tool. The real question isn't, should people take meds? It's, what role do meds play in your journey, and are you okay with that? Because let's be real, nobody side-eyes a diabetic for taking insulin. No one calls someone unstable for using an inhaler. But the second it's mental health meds, suddenly you're a walking red flag. If someone sees you as dangerous just because you take medication, that says more about their ignorance than it does about your mental stability. Because managing your health in any form isn't weakness, it's responsibility. It's not a superhero origin story. It's not a villain arc. It's just you, figuring your shit out like any functional adult. And if someone can't handle that, especially if they aren't a psychiatrist or scientist or therapist, well, maybe the real instability is thinking they're even qualified to judge. And that's all that really matters. So the question is, if you knew without a doubt that your struggle wasn't a personal failing, but a predictable response to a world you live in, what would you do differently? Would you still blame yourself? Would you still feel shame for needing help? Would you still accept the narrative that you're broken? Or would you start questioning who benefits from you believing that? Because here's the reality. If hundreds of millions of people worldwide need medication just to function in society, maybe the problem isn't them. Maybe it's a world they were never meant to fit into. And if that's the case, then what else have we been taught to believe about ourselves that isn't actually true?